All right. Hey, family. We are back in the studio at WBOK. We're excited to be here. We're excited for our first showing sometime. So, y'all stay tuned. Come on through. Share the show, of course. You know we're going to get it in today.
Where's your phone?
What phone?
Thank you.
Fanny pack comes in handy.
So we can see.
Come on through the WBOK True Love Movement Hour. We are here for the first time in a minute. We are excited. What you say, Brother Shaq?
Man, I say right on, Queen. Glad you're here. I think you may probably need to come more just like this.
Come over a little bit.
We're going to find out. You know, we've been out here for a minute.
Yes, so y'all come on through.
Got to
Let us know you're here.
recalibrate some things.
First time we started on time.
WBOK, New Orleans.
See what's happening here.
You're listening to the voice of the people. WBOK, 12:30 a.m., where it's real talk for real times.
Killer's body.
I'm still dropping your two-check. Come on. I'm still dropping your two-check. I'm still dropping your two-check. Come on. I'm still dropping your two-check. I'm still dropping your two-check. I'm still dropping your two-check.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the True Love Movement. I was your host, Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
And we'd like to welcome everyone here this October 6, 2018, back in the studio, live and on air. The on-air sign is flashing, Mama Fire. We are here,
Back
family.
in stride again.
Welcome back. Welcome back to all our listeners.
Welcome Black.
Welcome Black. That's right. Welcome Black. We have been on a little hiatus, along with the majority of the rest of the station. So it's good to be back. Shout out to our Facebook Live family for hanging in there, and for all of you all. We have been missing you here in the studio every Saturday at 5 o'clock.
Yes, we have.
It's been a ritual of ours, and as a matter of fact, Mama Fire, next month on the 13th of November, we'll make 5 years of the True Love Movement Hour here on WBOK.
5 years.
5 years. That's half a decade. You know, that's
And you know, 5 is my favorite number.
5 like a mighty fist, Mama Fire.
That's
so,
right.
You know, it's a magical number and a really magical time, and so we give thanks for that opportunity to be here on Saturdays at 5 o'clock, holding it down and holding it up. You know, Mama Fire, and we thank you for joining us, and our loyal listeners and viewers from the Facebook Live. Simply like the True Love Movement page on Facebook, and you can join us live here in the studio. And for everyone else, you can, of course, catch us at WBOK1230am.com on the web, and the WBOK 1230 AM app available in the Google Play as well as the App Store. And of course, on your AM dial, 1230, on your AM dial on the radio, as we say it.
On the radio. I got songs for everything.
You sure
today.
do, Mama Fire. And so much is happening here in the city of New Orleans today. And the month of October, we know the month of October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
And it is also Cancer Awareness Month, Mama Fire.
Breast Cancer
Breast
Awareness.
Cancer Awareness Month. And then it's also, what else? Is it mental? What else is it?
It's always about, you know, making mental wellness a priority.
Yep.
And that black mental wellness matters.
For sure.
Always, you know, they have these months, and I'm not too into them at all.
Right.
Because we should always be aware.
Definitely.
Mainly self-aware, but we should always be aware of what's going on to us, to our families, to our communities, with us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, on today, we were shout out to our sister Yaja, who's lead organizer, right, Mama Fire, for this, for making True Love Movement a part of the NAMI walk. NAMI does these walks, what is it, annually, I guess?
It's an annual fundraiser.
An annual fundraiser for NAMI, and NAMI is for those of us who are new to NAMI or unfamiliar with NAMI, NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness Modified.
Yes.
Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
And they've got a pretty robust group
Yeah.
of following here in the city of New Orleans in terms of footprint.
Well, it's a national organization.
Right.
And they have a lot of resources as well as like one-on-one support and group care and stuff. So it's, if you are or do suffer from any mental health challenges, it's more of a political kind of, I think, connection for
Okay.
people. So, whereas True Love Movement is very alternative and
Very
kind of
specific.
tuned in, extremely specific. This is more wide based.
Right.
And so it was our first time being a part of this, and it was Yaja who made the connection,
That's right.
which is
That's
cool.
right.
We're
Yeah.
all right with that.
That's right.
We're okay with that, but just know True Love Movement on a whole nother level.
shout out to
Right.
Yajin.
Yes.
And we had Mama J out there and Sister Rodnika and who else, Mama Five?
We had me and you and the children,
Yes.
and we had some of Yaja's friends.
That's
and
right.
so it was great. It was a good showing
That's
for
right.
True Love Movement.
Represented
We
out there,
represented.
Dillard University, Suno,
Xavier.
Xavier.
hmm
A lot of our people were present as well, and I think that's just important. We were there, but as you said, what we do is a little bit different,
A lot of
and
it different. A lot different.
and
on purpose.
deliberately so, and
Yes.
today will certainly be no different. But a whole lot has been happening, family, since we've been away, including the advent of True Love Movement Tuesdays, Mama Fi, that we've
True Love
been
Movement Tuesday.
doing True Love Movement Tuesdays to kind of supplement where the True Love Movement Hour wasn't happening, and it seems like our folks are enjoying that.
We do it at a prime time.
At a prime time, we were
Yeah.
at 9 p.m. on last Tuesday. Very good show. That's up there on the True Love Movement page if you haven't checked it out. We had a chance to highlight our sister, Sweet Storm Productions, from the burlesque show on last, Black Burlesque show on last Saturday.
Yes.
And so that was really fantastic. And then you working on this album, Mama Fire.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
Blessing. You heard me.
Family, this is, go ahead.
Unspeakable. It's like unspeakable. It is such a joy and I'm so full of gratitude.
hmm
This is happening. Like, it's really happening. Like, I'm
Right
really in the studio. I'm really shining brightly. I'm really creating music for our people, specifically for Black women
That's right.
and Black families and Black men and Black boys and Black girls, and we talked about it in a car on the way here that we have to
Yeah.
have to be
definitely
making
have to.
music that is clear and clearly giving real practical understanding of ourselves and self-love, the things we talk about in chant form.
That's right.
Say things 3 times or more so that people can get it. Like, I'm really able, it's like medicine. I'm
Mhm.
creating medicine, and it's
Indeed.
alchemy, what we call it.
Totally.
Alchemy. So I'm excited. I'm so excited. The studio feels good.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. And it's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to witness that, to bear witness to that, Mama Fire, to see it really coming to life. I know how long you've been working on it.
Yeah.
I know the ups and the downs and the challenges of putting the material out, and shout out to you again for doing a fantastic job over with our sister Kendra Joy for the women's conference, Women of Color Conference, Days of Healing.
Yes.
We're doing the Emotional Healing 101 workshop, which was really magnificent. Again, just another extension or another tool in the toolkit for True Love Movement. That's what we were saying earlier, that this isn't typically what you would get when it comes to mental wellness and that kind of thing. We're not in that kind of a box because our people are boundless. So there's no way we're going to try to jam up folks in a little box and tell them what they ought to do.
Yes. I wanted to say something real quick about the album.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to stay tuned for the album release. We're going to have an album release party as well as
All right.
the Walk in Your Worth video shoot.
Okay.
So my sisters, I'm calling out for all my sisters. We don't have a date quite yet, but all my sisters be ready to represent for that Walk in Your Worth video shoot. I think with the music, the message in your ear and the message in your eyes. It's important to shift the dynamic what's going on in media.
That's right.
Especially with women. Listen, I understand there's some powerful women that are in media right now, but we have to pull the reins onto the seriously onto the positive,
Right.
uplifting type of things, to the point where this is all we need to do right now,
Right.
Not even balance it. I mean, in order to balance it. And so, support sisters doing this work.
Right on. We're gonna be on the lookout for that. I'm excited about that. I mean, what we're saying right now on the radio can't do it justice. Just wait till you see, wait till you hear. You'll really get it, family. Shout out to our sister Natasha Wilson, our good brother Amon Kim. I was thinking about him yesterday, and I'm glad to see that brother tuning in. And for all of our listeners and viewers, worldwide, it's good to be back. And so we got a jam-packed show today. And Mama Fi, I think that was a great segue, a great opportunity to get into today's topic, which is taken out of context. Again, today's topic is taken out of context. And so this is a quick lesson or a quick observation of something that as it relates to communication amongst our people, something that I think we've all experienced, and something that I've been paying particular attention to for a while. But just as of very recently, it just dawned on me how much of the confusion and the chaos and the arguments and the misunderstanding and the fighting amongst our people, amongst us, is really rooted in us taking things completely out of context. And not deliberately. I want to first start off with that, not deliberately. And I also want to say, before we go any further, that English is the language taught to us by those people who have enslaved and continue to oppress us. That's number one. That is their language. It is a very young language. And throughout the continent of Africa, there's an untold number of languages that have been spoken and are spoken that are much older than English. And in addition to English being a young language and a language of angles, we always thank and lift up our brother Bobby Emile Labat for pointing out, English and the angles, the ENGL is angle. That means it ain't straight. It's not. It's deliberately a confusing kind of language. I'm bringing that up, and I'm spending just a little bit of time on that to say this isn't our language. And so it's not sophisticated enough for the brilliance of the African mind, Mama Fire.
Come on.
I'm being very serious about that. There are things that we experience, things that we think about, things that we feel in our bodies as indigenous people to the planet that English simply cannot convey. It just lacks the capacity to be able to convey those things. So I'm saying that to say we start off at a disadvantage when it comes to communicating with one another. So that said, we're very, very limited on how we can express ourselves with one another.
And expression is important.
Expression is...
Communication is important.
Well, that's our humanity. I mean, that's how we really connect.
That's how we relate.
That's how we relate to one another. And if there's something, if there's a key impediment in that, then it's going to produce chaos. And we're going to see each other as the source of that chaos and not see the limitation of the language is that. Because we're taught that English as the standard of languages, so to speak, in at least here in this place. And so being able to master it, which, that's another word we're going to look at, not today, but we're going to get into that word master and the etymology and all that kind of stuff. But, someone's ability to master that language has everything to do with how well they're taken seriously, or how well they can get what they want to get and navigate and so forth.
That's true. And then, just as an aside, and then about text, the words too, like how much is misconstrued and taken out of context, even when we, with this new digital age where everything is text or email. And I just wanted to, put a little side on that.
Thank you, because so much of the communication now is nuanced, and it doesn't have to be. It's part of the, I would say it's part of the extension of the dehumanization that is happening and the erosion of whatever semblance of humanity is remaining in America. this idea that digital communication and texting and, hearing things, or better yet, reading things without, there again, context creates communication. But what I wanted to start off talking about, Mama Fire, is rooted in an observation that I've been watching for a long time and kind of been, categorizing what I've been looking at. But much of the time, our people are evaluating or assessing things and people and situations in a very limited scope of it's good or it's bad.
That's true.
In other words, when encountering something or someone or some news or some information, the very first thing that happens in the process is we're running it through a lens or a filter. Is this good or is this bad? And I also understand that has a lot to do with our being in survival mode all the time. You know what I mean? Like when we're sitting there living in the root chakra, right there at our very base level, just trying not to die. It doesn't present a lot of time for a pattern of contemplation and deep thought. You got to make very quick decisions, and you got to, kind of like when we talked about when you're training tactically training for weapons or for shooting, the way you train ultimately is you don't have a lot of time always to look at the target and to line up the sights and everything. So there has to be some kind of muscle memory, something that happens very, very quickly for you to, sometimes survive in those kinds of situations.
Teach.
And so much of the way that we are just going about our normal day-to-day and what has become the normative behavior for us is in that same very narrow regard of this is good or this is bad. Did you have something too, Mama Fi, just at that point?
Yeah.
Please.
Because, we always look at good and bad in context, but we don't look at it in context, and that's the point. And I think, if we just take something very simple like stealing, most of us are taught stealing is bad.
That's
it's
right.
a bad thing. But what if you're stealing for your children's survival? Like, what if, like some people are trained by the people who love them and who are teaching them and training them that stealing is the right thing to do.
Right.
If you're hungry and you don't have any money, then you should steal, and you're told to steal, and so then it's not a bad thing. So what is really good and bad?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Mama Fi. Stealing is a great example of something about context. For example, stealing land. Let's talk about stealing
Come
land.
on, Brother Shaq.
Okay? So is that good or bad to steal land?
Come on.
Right? You see what I'm saying? It has to have some kind of context. And so if you want to steal land because you don't like where you were, you want to expand where you were, and you want to take something that doesn't belong to you, then you take it and you make that a good thing. You say, well, I'm doing this because I have a noble reason or whatever the case is. See how that's context in there. It isn't good nor bad. It depends on who you're asking. Now, it's probably going to be bad for the people you're stealing it from. You understand? But it's good for the person who's stealing it. So see how good and bad, even in that example, isn't really sufficient to make an adjustment, an assessment for what's really happening. So when we're talking about context, and if we look at that word, English word, context, the suffix is con, C-O-N. And that suffix essentially means with, like connecting with.
Yes, it does.
And so when you look at not suffix, that's a prefix. The suffix text, is the body of the thing that's written. So the text is the main thing. So when you're looking at what's with the main thing, that's why the context is important. And you cannot really evaluate a situation and make a rational judgment without the context. You can't do it. And so that being the case, there's going to be some confusion. There's going to be some chaos. There might be all kind of stuff happening if you don't have context on what's being said. So if you're starving and you're stealing, I think there was something that happened with recently when there was the last disaster that happened, the last hurricane or wherever it was. There was some of our people I saw recently who were going to trial because they had quote unquote looted a grocery store for food. They were out of power for an extended period of time, and they went into this grocery store and they got food, and then they were arrested for trespassing and stealing all these other things, they were black people. And so we've seen in other times past when people who weren't black people did the very same thing, and they were surviving. You know, it was okay. They were surviving. There was no ill intent. There was no laws broken. Everything was forgivable because the context was this was being done for their survival. And we know that there's a premium on the survival of people who are not those people of color in America.
And so what inspired you to do this topic, Brother Shaq? What inspired you to talk about context? Was there an issue? Was there a specific personal issue?
Well, it wasn't personal, but with the people that we work with and the listening that's done, what I saw was there was a pattern of folks were being confronted with certain things, be it opportunities for work or be it opportunities for housing or just a number of things that very well could be beneficial, but their ability to determine the quality of the opportunity was very, very skewed. In other words, they weren't able, they didn't have context. It was just like, if I don't feel like dealing with that today, then this is foolishness and this is dumb. You know what I'm saying? They were basing on that and had no deeper thought like, I really need this because I need to sustain where I'm living or how I'm living. And so when we started talking about those things, they were looking at me like, well, what you mean, bro? You know what I'm saying? Like that's bad because I don't feel like that. People always messing with me and blase. I said, but what about your ability to provide food, clothing, shelter, and love for yourself? How does the decision you're making or how you're evaluating this opportunity, how does it line up with that? How is that going to produce the outcome that you say you want? You see, that's what I'm talking about in the confusion. Because if you're limited to saying something is good or bad, you're not connecting it contextually to what it is that you say that you want.
I get it. We want to invite new voices into our conversation.
Definitely.
So I think we need to open up the phone line. It's called the WVOK Solution line.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's 504-260-9265. We're asking for first-time callers to call in the True Love Movement Hour. Brother Shaq laid it down so eloquently about taking out of context.
That's right.
Yeah, I like this lesson today, Brother Shaq.
Right on, Mama Fire. And as we are waiting, and of course those of you who are on the Facebook Live, you're good to comment on the thread. This is to stimulate some kind of thinking about what we're doing. This is a very basic thing, very, very, very basic thing that we don't always consider, but yet whether or not we have the context has everything to do with how well we understand or can at least process whatever we're experiencing. I can give another example too, Mama Fire.
Please do.
Sometimes, and this just happened not long ago, someone who has very good knowledge of and has good interaction with people who are making certain kinds of decisions. Say this example from this particular story was that people and young people are having children and being celebrated for that in our community, and that is wasn't always the case, and we shouldn't do that, and that is very, very wrong. It's not good for anybody. They're having children they cannot raise. They're burdening society. They're burdening other people to raise them, and so they're ill-equipped parents, and of course, ill-equipped parents are going to have children who are going to be unruly in school, and all those kinds of things, which were true.
I don't know.
Well, not true in a good sense, but in terms of trajectories, that these things, it's not necessarily the best advice under social circumstances to have children, very, very young, while you're a teenager or what have you.
Gotcha.
So there's some accuracy to that. But if you look at that through the lens and say, well, is that good or is that bad? You need more context for that.
Definitely need more information.
You need more information.
Sure.
So you need the context helps us to look at, or at least to create or develop some kind of an analysis on, well, why are, young people having
Definitely.
these children
Why?
like that. And what is that? And the why that we're asking, again, with context, isn't to say it shouldn't happen, but we're asking it very scientifically, like what are the circumstances and the conditions that exist that make this seem like the thing to do, to the point where it's becoming more normative behavior, where I think someone remarked that there's a TV show about it. And so this was important because the first System 1 response on it is that, this is a very irresponsible thing, and people are very irresponsible, children are irresponsible, parents are irresponsible, and they're bad. Mm-hmm. That's the System 1 on it, System 1 response. So here we are blaming people for these things without looking at, well, what's the context? What has happened? What is happening?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and thank you for bringing this up as far as context is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
because I would, the type of thinker I am, and also the type of expertise I have. You have, for one, the statistics are going down
That's
for
right.
teenage pregnancies.
They are down.
And they are down, for one, and that's really good, because with the understanding and communication of sexual health,
Mm-hmm.
information, sexual health education, sex education, we're taught to, birth control condoms,
Right.
Also self-love, abstinence, and these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But if a young woman who is very young, 13, 14, 15, are having children, I will always ask why, because
Right.
most often there's some sexual abuse there somewhere, some sexual violation, some sexual trauma. And I know people don't like talking about this, and I end up being the woman or the person with this voice, to talk about this taboo subject that is pandemic in our community, and
Definitely.
multi-generational in our
400
community. And so that, as well as when children are coming into this world, it should be celebrated.
Right.
It should. Now listen, we're not talking about rape here. We're not talking about abortion. We're not getting into that. We're saying when a woman decides, because when she gets her menstrual, when she gets her moon cycle, her body is saying that she is ready.
Right.
And we know her mind isn't ready. We know the society and finances and economics isn't ready. We know all that.
Mm-hmm.
But when a baby is coming and a mother says, yes, I want to have this baby, no matter what age it is, it should be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
We also need to get the help for the young person and make sure they are safe. Right? Make sure, and get help for whatever trauma they've been through. And if every seasoned mama adopted, and I mean, I don't mean adopted by the state or nothing like that, but actually decided that you were going to support and honor this mama, no matter how old she was, to show her what it means to mother and why it's important to make sure she's well, make sure that the person is well, the mother is well. And I think just that's something that we need to use, just period, in our community, is celebrating a woman when she is pregnant. Because we are finding that women who have waited a long time to get pregnant are having more trouble getting pregnant. Right? We're having to take fertility drugs, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to wait. You definitely wait until you are ready to bring a child into this world.
That's right.
But if a child is coming to this world, we definitely need to uplift and celebrate them. And a lot of the time that context is in our hearts.
That's right.
It's in our hearts and minds first.
That's right.
And then throw things out there. We throw things out there on social media, and then we get a lot of backlash, and you get to see where people's minds are.
Sure.
You get to see, and I would ask for context.
Right.
As well. I think that's a good question to ask people. Can you give me some context?
Right.
And how it it kind of parallels history. Right? You always talk about history, Brother Shaq. You are
right.
True Love Movement's historian.
That's right.
You're an honorable historian here, and thank you for being that. But it's funny how you're talking about history and it parallels you always talk about history and it parallels context.
That's right. That's right. And what we talk about history is that in America, culturally, it's ahistorical. Just like there's no context. You know what I'm saying? Like things just happen randomly. In this particular example, like when you're talking about the pregnancies and having babies and welcoming children into the community, some context on the kinds of things that make this behavior normative is the fact that we're looking at impoverished, oppressed people historically, and we all know anyone who looks at history or checks data, that there's statistics. People oftentimes who are in poverty and people who are oppressed may have more children. They have children more frequently, and on the side without the context, they say, well, why would you do that? You can't even handle your own finances and your own stuff, and you bring other lives and people into the world, and they're suffering and struggling and blah blah blah. Well, how about maybe the people who, it's worth considering that, sexual power is something that people tend to have access to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you don't have any other kind of power, and you're in a society that cultivates a codependent relationship in you, where those people who have the resources and maintain the resources, they do that at the expense of exploiting your codependency. So it appears as though that they are entitled to them, and however they're allocated and distributed, because it's theirs, and put those who don't have them in a constant situation of needing help. You know what I'm saying? The people who people want to feel powerful. So we all know that our sexual power is an innate human power, and so you have that, and then the fact that oftentimes, for people who are of age and ready, sex tends to feel good, and so people want to feel good, particularly those people who don't normally feel good. So when you have access to that feeling of feeling good and feeling better and not having to think about your oppression, because there are many things that make us feel good, but when you don't have a lot of resources and you don't have access, you can't just necessarily fly around the world and say, you know what, I don't like where I am right now, and I just need a change of scenery and go to the other side of the globe and say, now that's nice. But you possibly can't have sex, and that sex could produce a child, and maybe you weren't intending to have that child. Maybe but you didn't plan it. All kinds of things happen like that, and so now you have an additional responsibility that could put a strain on your already tense financial situation, and so there's the child. I mean, it happens all the time, but it doesn't happen because poor people and black people are inherently bad or careless. They are very limited in having an experience of their own self-efficacy. So that's context, though. And that also humanizes what happens, as opposed to us just saying very passively that you're bad or you're wrong because you're being irresponsible.
Definitely.
So, yeah, we got the lines lit up, caller. Thank you for holding. What's happening? Welcome to the True Love Movement Hour, y'all. All right,
Hi.
What's happening?
Mm.
Uh-huh. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you, brother. We appreciate that call. Right on.
Yeah,
And
thank you
for
so
listening.
much. Yeah, he's right.
Did you
He's so right. It's like the dynamic between parent and child,
Mhm.
and not always, but a lot of the time,
Right.
I think of the situation I had in parenting my oldest two children, especially my oldest child.
Mhm.
Let me just say my oldest three children. Let me just say that because we kind of bunch them up and say the oldest three and
Context.
two little ones. Yes, yes.
Give us some context.
And
right
so went really, really hard on them, and pushed Black Power, pushed, African languages and studying Africa, and I just and they really pushed away. By the time they could, Like by the time they were old enough to be able to articulate and say that it didn't line up with them anymore, and just pushed it hard on them. And that's why I decided to, with my as I developed as a mama through each child, my younger two, because there's 6 years in between the oldest and the youngest, very subtly give them opportunities to learn something new. Something that resonates with their mind and spirits. And if it doesn't resonate with them, I respect that. So this is about power. You talked about power and power struggles,
right?
Between two forces and between two human beings. Because a lot of the times we look at our children like they're something different from a human being or something. They're not a little human, they're not a little person.
That's right.
They don't have their own thoughts on things. They can't have their own thoughts. You better shut up and listen. You better not say nothing back, is how we've learned how to parent our children. And so then they, even though there is context, we don't give them a chance to be able to dig into and critically think for themselves, right. And so I learned that with my other two. Even though I'm here to guide them, I've been sent to guide them. You just cannot shovel something down a child's throat, because they will do the opposite.
That's right.
They will do the opposite. And I learned that, as a parent. And I think all of this is about context. So when I think about my own parenting, I think about my own me disobeying my mom. And, the context was the way she raised me, pushing things, doctrines, and things down my throat. I ended up raising my children that way. And so when we understand bad, quote unquote, bad parenting, where do people get it from?
Yes.
People want to, talk about young women who are talking about teenagers who are getting pregnant, having children that are unruly. But where does this come from?
Right.
Where does this come from? And then when we talk about community, and it takes a healthy village to raise a healthy child.
Yes,
it takes
I say it takes a healthy village.
Healthy village to raise a healthy child.
Right.
It's that a mother is not all responsible.
That's right.
She is very much the foundation of what a child is learning, but what has she learned? Right? I think a child raised, especially a girl, a young woman raised correctly, would be raised with the idea of self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, wanting to have children where they, in which they can take care of them, respecting motherhood, respecting sex.
That's right.
When we think about poverty, Brother Shaq, in context, we have to understand that poverty is more than financial or economic.
That's right.
Poverty affects our minds and spirits and every little decision that we make.
Yes.
And so when you talked about sex, with young people, or with our people, period, poor people who are having children, you think about access. You talked about access.
That's
talking about media, right? We got to think about what people are listening to on a regular basis.
That's right.
Idle time. Are they bored? Are they bored? Low self-esteem, the collective low self-esteem we share. Attention-seeking behavior, right? You're looking for somebody to validate you and tell you you're good enough. And a lot of times young men, because we want to talk about the young women so bad, but they didn't get pregnant by themselves.
They did not.
And it's young men and older men.
That's right.
And let me be real, these old men having sex with these teenagers getting them pregnant and telling them, do not tell them who your baby's father is, so they won't get in trouble. Let's get real.
That's right.
Abandonment from their fathers, abandonment and wanting such close connections, wanting a baby, wanting someone to love them, and escapism. Sex can be used as a drug or as something to get high off of. So listen, that's the context.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yes. That's the context.
That's the context, Mama Fi. Thank you for that. We thank our caller, too.
Yes, we are still asking for first-time callers.
Definitely.
We're inviting new voices into our conversation on WVOK Solution Line.
That's right.
So y'all call 504-260-9265.
That's right, family. Because your thoughts matter. I mean, what we're doing is we're not teaching or preaching here. We are, essentially developing an analysis with you all who are listening, who are watching. We have on the Facebook Live, the sister is saying, and I'm going to paraphrase it. She's studying, reptilian behaviors in the brain and brain function, and how how much of the issues concerning our people, is the rooted in the constant release of dopamine, controlling the rewarding negative behaviors. I think that question isn't very difficult with context.
Yes.
Because in the way we're socialized in America is that there is a manufactured competition. There is a perceived feeling or misunderstanding of lack. And that's designed so that we always want for something that we do not have. And so those who have the thing that we do not have, they decide if we'll get it based upon whatever they want us to do. And because the perception is that there is some scarcity in the manufactured competition, when manufactured competition comes along, that we have to kind of battle each other out to get this very limited, finite amount of things that are outside of ourselves that are prized because someone else has them and we do not. And if we think that we're living or existing in a sea of lack because oppression, sends that constant message. Media is a wonderful tool and a very efficient tool to do that. Then it seems as though it's the thing to do. But there again, it's not our nature. What the sister effectively is talking about is, the root chakra, where we started at. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that, she mentioned a reward for negative behaviors, but I'm just saying our people, in my estimation, just like with sex, want to feel something. See, this oppression makes us numb and dumb.
Come on.
We want to feel something. We just want to feel something. So we will stay in negative, hostile, very tense situations, interactions with people, unhealthy sort of connections, because we feel something. Just the way people feel, cathartic, or they feel that adrenaline rush inside of a fight, in the throes of an actual physical altercation or verbal altercation. It's addictive to them because they feel alive in that time. So it's this idea that something outside of you must stimulate you because there is nothing inside of you to inspire you. So we're seeking to be motivated, not to be inspired, because we've already been conditioned to think there is nothing worth value inside of us. And so there again, media helps with that, and it is still the perception of lack, that there's some sort of lack that we must compete with one another for. And so that's an ongoing thing. And look, the other part of it is, it ties directly with capitalism.
Somebody's just getting ready to say that.
Somebody's making money off that.
Right there.
Right. Go ahead, Mama, fire with it.
Yeah, because, all right, capitalism has to have the lack. In order for it to work the way it has, someone has to be at the bottom.
That's right.
Of capitalism. And so when we talk about poverty, we're definitely talking about it as far as financial and economic, right? And so in poverty, in capitalism, you must have poverty.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And so these young people, and we're talking about, this is one small example.
That's right.
We're talking about young people who are having children early, right?
That's right.
That's what we're talking about. And so they are able to access sex and not things that cost money.
Right.
Sex doesn't cost money if you're not using condoms. Sex doesn't cost money if you're not on birth control or if you're not taking care of your sexual health in that way. And so this is something that's accessible that feels good. But what else feels good? We're talking about self-expression in some way, doing some art, doing some creativity. But we talked about idle time. Are there enough programs? I'm not saying that programs are the answer. I'm just saying,
what's a person to do?
This is so much bigger than that. One, was it a post on social media?
That particular thing was a post, but we know that it's universally applicable in terms of the idea of the necessity of context, just for clarity's sake, so that we at least understand and can reckon with what we're really dealing with. See, without having the context, it's like we're having a passive discussion, and it's very, very shallow and very superficial.
Yes, it is.
And when that happens, like you mentioned social media just now, much of the things and the exchanges that are happening on places like social media is rooted in the opinions that folks have. And you know, opinions are like eyebrows. Everybody got at least two of them. And the way we're socialized with dealing with people is there again, that competitive thing that if I've got an idea or an opinion rather, my chief function is to force you into submission, to make you believe or to make you agree with me, thus, you know, reaffirming that I'm right. And because we live in a dichotomous society, you know, that mimics the dominant culture, particularly I'm talking culturally with our people, because we're mimicking that, then I'm forcing you into submission, and so that means if I'm right, then you got to be wrong, and don't nobody want to be wrong. So then we got that thing going. You see what I'm saying? And so we're completely not even dealing with whatever the realness of the subject is, because we're not taking a deep enough dive.
That's right.
We're not taught to, and so oftentimes those debates are just about people asserting their opinion, how they feel about something, what they think it is, and it doesn't have any historical context. It doesn't have any facts or any other kind of things that are you know, any common language. It's missing a lot of the things that would make the discussion human. It's lacking the things that would make the discussion human. And see, we've been taught historically, specifically, that if you dehumanize someone or you remove their humanity from them by force, then you can treat them any old kind of way.
That's right.
So it's necessary that for that quote unquote killer instinct that people be talking about. You see what I'm saying? All these things are not innate in people, you know, indigenous people to the planet, but this is of the dominant culture. So we have the language of the dominant culture in America, and we have the socialization to mimic them and to hold them up as a standard. And we wonder why we can't have a conversation with one another without fussing or fighting or arguing or calling somebody stupid or falling out or trying to convince somebody of something. That's why, because we lack that context, Mama Fire.
Very, very true. So we are at 5:48 right now. So we are
It's a
still.
good time, yeah.
I think we should still ask for new voices into our conversations, asking for first-time callers to
First
come on
time
call.
callers if you want
The
to jump in there.
WBOK Solution Hotline, 504-260-9265.
Again,
504-260 504-260-9265. The
That's it.
WBOK Solution Hotline.
right on.
Having these deep discussions relating it to Black mental wellness is
Mm-hmm.
important, right? We are True Love Movement, and we are sent on a mission to teach political education surrounding Black mental wellness.
That's right.
That is the goal. The goal is for our people to be well.
That's right.
We need you well.
That's
What you
it.
say about that, Brother Shay?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up and making the connection, because that does give the whole discussion context. You know, like, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about it this way? Why are we even looking at it? Because it isn't just some flimsy thing to talk about. This is very, very relational and very necessary and vital to us reclaiming our humanity. I mean, again, with the historical context, let it be understood. You talked about parenting. The brother that called talked about parenting. We talk about parenting all the time, and we listen to folks who are parents talk about parenting, and you mentioned, where did they get that from? Well, they got it from their parents. Well, where do you think their parents got it from?
Come on.
Well, they got it from their parents. And all you got to do is go back 5 generations and you're going to be on the plantation.
Brother
What
Shay.
kind of parent are you going to be when you owned by somebody else?
Come on.
And in addition to that, your model for how to parent is looking up at the people who are oppressing you, who own you. I mean, we have to have context to look at the quality about what we expect to have an outcome now and be able to relate what happened then to what's happening now. Because if you can do that successfully with context, you won't have to be a historian, and it ain't about you being deep. But what will happen for you is you can create a bridge to your sanity.
Come on.
If you do not and cannot do that, you're going to be left without context. You're going to be left with, man, our people stupid. Man, look, they don't want nothing out of life. Look, they keep on doing this. They loose. They're irresponsible. They tripping? You see what I'm saying? You're forced to look at the people and blame them for their condition, even though you're a part of the people. You know, you're looking at them like there's something inherently wrong with your own people and your own self because you're lacking context. So
Come on.
context is a choice.
Yeah.
like
I like that.
the brother said, it is a choice. But in all seriousness, it does go with critical analysis and the need for critical analysis, not to be academic or scholarly, but just to be sane.
Come on.
Just to be sane.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we all have that muscle to exercise, Brother Shaq. You don't actually have to take a class on context.
No.
You know, you don't need to take a class on critical thinking. You need to just ask why.
That's
The
right.
question why. And if you're asking another human being, it's the question why. But a lot of times, the first person we need to ask why is ourselves.
That's right.
Right? Because we have the answer.
Oh,
You have been
yes.
with you for all of your life.
Every moment.
24 hours of every single day of your life, you have been with you. And so if you ask yourselves why, it's a good exercise in critical thinking.
That's right.
You know the answers. Okay? And so people want to know, how do I do that? Where do I, how do I start?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start. If you need to dump it onto something, put it in a journal, put it on a piece of paper, draw it out, whatever the case may be. This is where we start.
That's
You have all the context on you.
That's right.
And that's why it's important for this, what you're calling, Brother Shaq, multi-generational healing.
That's right.
See, there has been no intervention. And when there's someone who is had a problem and is sick, and there's no intervention, they get sicker.
That's right.
And sicker and sicker
And
and
the trauma
sicker.
gets re-stimulated.
Re-stimulated,
Again and again
and
and
you
again
are
and again.
in all kind of situations and don't have any intervention.
That's right.
True Love Movement is the intervention.
That's right. That's right.
Listen. Use what you need and use what you have to get what you want. We talk about that all the time.
That's right. We do it anyway.
You have a mind. You have a mind.
We do it anyway.
And use it critically to analyze your own self so
That's
that you
right.
can understand what that means when we say critical analyzation, critical analysis.
Critical analysis, Mama Fire. Thank you for that. And you said about being the question and the answer.
Come on.
Shout out to your favorite rapper, Nas, who in his song talks about you the question and the
And
answer.
the answer.
And the answer. But you're my favorite rapper, so I want to shout out to you. You understand?
Aw. I'm somebody's favorite rapper.
See that? Look at that.
So amazing.
The mama artist, teacher, healer.
Come on.
But we want to thank you all for joining us. Again, we may be a little bit rusty. We haven't been on the air here in a while.
Yeah, but we're back.
We're back, and we're glad that you're back with us. We have missed you all. 5 o'clock, the 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock hour on Saturdays, really for the last 5 years, has been a very sacred time for us here on the True Love Movement Hour, for
Yes.
True Love Movement on
We are so
WBOK,
thankful.
12:30 a.m. And we're very thankful. Gratitude to our people who came out today with us for the NAMI walk, and for folks who are asking about, when's the next thing y'all doing, and when we have community discussions and all these different kinds of things.
I want to know.
We appreciate that, because that is essentially what the work is.
Yes.
And we also understand that this isn't for anyone's agreement. We're not selling anybody anything. This is as simple as when you're ready to redeem your self-respect. You know what I'm saying? When you're
This is the
ready to redeem
intervention.
your self-respect,
Yes.
then this is a way that will support you on your journey.
Yes.
We do have a multi-generational healing program that is up and running, and it works wonders. It really will change your life if you're interested. And so if you are interested, visit us at www.truelovemovement.com, or like True Love Movement on Facebook, True Love Movement on Instagram. There is a True Love Movement Hour YouTube channel. There's at TLMHR on Twitter. The Love Line at 504-309-LOVE. Soon come, we'll have the Resolving Rape Culture workshop again. That was magnificent, family. The actual book to that is almost finished. And speaking of
Come on,
books, Mama
Brother
Fire,
Shaq.
2 books out. Runaway Girl and Keep It High, Thoughts in a New Light.
That's right.
Talk about it.
Man, listen, we have a lot of products out there that talk specifically about Black mental wellness and the things that we can do to get there. First and foremost, we have to realize that it is possible.
That's right.
That it's possible to heal and get us where we need to go. And then listen, if it tries to come out your mouth that our people ain't no good and nothing gonna happen, stop. Stop your mouth.
That's right.
Words are powerful. The way you think are powerful. So Runaway Girl and Keep It High are always available. I'm
That's
so
right.
glad to share those. And the new album, late bloomer
Yeah.
is actually from the Keep It High Thoughts in a New Light.
Right
book.
on.
So listen, True Love Movement has many ways for us to get our minds right.
And so,
Okay.
Mama Fi, you saying that you had an experience,
Yes,
and so you wrote a book, you put it on pages,
sure did.
and then you released the book,
Sure enough.
and you taught on the book, and then you took that book and you made that book a stage play.
Yes, I did.
And so people came out for the stage play to see you act out what you had experienced that you wrote about in the book.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know how much clearer somebody would need to get about it.
We on a mission. We on a mission. If you don't read, you might listen.
That's right.
If you don't listen, you might watch a play. If you don't watch a play, you might watch a movie. You heard me? That's the next level.
And let me say this, you know, I'm grateful to you for your teaching, and your teaching comes directly from your thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, black women's thoughts really, really matter, family. I know that we're not taught that way. We're taught quite the opposite, because if we'll look historically and even look at our own experiences, typically no one is more oppressed than black women in America. No one has to repeat themselves more than black women in America. Nobody. You know what I'm saying? And still, the sisters persist. And so, as our first teacher, when we were hungry, the black mama gave her body to transport to get us here, right? And so we come out of this black woman, and when we come out that very first time we are hungry, she been nursing us the whole time in the womb. When we come out, she puts us on the breast. So how do we get to a point where we think it's logical, rational, and reasonable to try to silence her and to ignore her and to dismiss her? See how there ain't no context for that?
Let me tell you. Black women's thoughts matter, period. Because if her mind is right, her thoughts matter. If her mind isn't right, her thoughts matter. Matter means materializes and becomes tangible.
That's right.
Right? So people want to talk about, the wild and, crazy children not listening and all these type of things, because the way a black woman thinks is extremely, extremely important.
It is.
So when a black woman wants to share these thoughts that have come into beautiful manifestation, we need to share that information with as many black women, black girls, black men, black boys as we can.
That's right.
Okay? And so support a black woman's thoughts, especially when she has done the work it takes to get her mind right. Okay? I'm not just talking about me.
That's
there
right.
are many, many black women out there. Frances Cress Welsing,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think about her books and how they've changed me. I think about Octavia Butler's books.
That's right.
About how to look at our future as Afrofuturism, as look at what we can
Look
create.
at what potential
Listen,
is.
it's important for us to share the information that we've learned for black women. And thank you, Brother Shag. You are a champion for black women, and you are very, very loved by me and loved by the communities for that. You have to be this man. Listen, for the brothers who are listening, say, man, Brother Shaq always talking about women. He always talking about black women. Mama Fire must have whipped, or whatever. He must be whipped or chicken pecked or whatever.
Hen
Hen
pecked,
pecked.
yeah,
They call
yeah.
these different things. He is also on this mission.
Absolutely.
This man, nobody's telling him what he should say.
No.
Nobody is training him. He has a depth of understanding about black women that is important. He realizes the truth from his
Yeah.
own life story.
Empirical knowledge, they call that.
From the context of his own life story.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So do what we need to do to be very clear, family. Shout out to our Facebook Live family. Shout out to Kay, and everybody.
I think I saw Radhika.
Shantice,
Oh, hey,
Radhika,
yes.
Alina Allen joined us.
Beautiful.
Amadede.
Oh,
Again,
that's
our
my
good brother
sister.
Armand Kim, Natasha Wilson, and anyone that we didn't see scrolling through the live, the feed on the Facebook will, of course, stay alive after we go off the air. So, please contribute richly to the discussion. I'm convinced we can think our way out of this mess.
Yes, we can.
And,
We can move, we can work, we can walk, we can talk, we can do everything we need out of this mess. Mainly think and love.
And two quick announcements directly following the True Love Movement at 6:00 is going to be our sister Greer, 2523 Bayou Road at Community Book Center. She's re-releasing her documentary about
book signing.
and a book signing and a dance of Black Dance Louisiana. and then Build 'em Up, Take 'em Down Nola is having a Build 'em Up party at good brother Alvin White's spot on 3101 Erato Street at Crescent City Boxing Gym. That's happening also at 6 o'clock. So much happening. And I'm sure there's some other things happening. Check social media and really get involved and support what our people are doing, because far too many black-owned businesses and black organizations are folding and closing their doors in 2018 because we're not engaged in our own business. So I would implore you, if you love yourself, nothing says I love you like investing in a black-owned business or an organization. So become a part of that family and tune in on Tuesdays for True Love Movement Tuesdays. And you know, just stay plugged in on social media. Speak clearly and make sure that you are not taken out of context, family. Make sure. I'm Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
For the True Love Movement Hour. Wholeness. Now we still on there.
Richard, go to
What we listening to, Mama Fire?
This is Rally the Troops. We're listening to Rally the Troops. And listen, this song is so old, but it's so beautiful. Y'all gotta watch the video too. We're gonna put the video in the link. It's talking about the youth is the truth. Come on, rally them troops. So I want to thank WVOK 1230 AM. We need to support our black-owned radio station, y'all, and make sure we are up and running. Like Brother Shaq said, there's been many black-owned businesses that are not here with us, and I want to shout out my brother Vince Craig. Brother, we love you. We love you always. And whatever you need from True Love Movement, we got you. And so we, you know, I think this was a good show, a good way to get back on WVOK 1230 AM. That's Mama C Freedom. It's some powerful women who are featured on this song. Mama Fire recognize the need for new roots. So I think Niani's 11 now. I think she was 3. So it's about 8 years ago. So, yeah. All right, family.
Right on. All right, share this show with people you respect, family. We out.